Good. So Niko, can you tell me more about the context in which you do mob programming, the problems you solve, the company, the culture, so on?
Yeah, I would like to. So I think our project is quite complex in our context, and well, I have to think what I can say because I cannot say too much because of the NDA and all that. But
Yeah.
what I can say is that our domain is quite centered around this systems engineering and like device programming and data science a bit. So it sometimes it actually goes quite deeply into the embedded programming field, but also sometimes we have this kind of a more data science towards kind of tasks that we do. And essentially, if we think about the tech stack point of view, what we are building is desktop applications. So we're doing those with web technologies. So for example, we're building Electron applications, and we have been using TypeScript and React for those. And these desktop applications, so they run in our local machines, of course, and they talk to our backend application, which has this data science logic implemented in Python. So the mobbing context here is that, well, basically it's a full stack development. We have the front end and back end, and we want to do it like in these vertical slices that, for example, mob or pair, it takes first might do something in the back end and then the front end, or we can approach the problem like outside in. First, we start from the UI, the front end side, then we check what we need for the API, then we go to back end, the database, and so on. So we want to do like these slices. Yeah.
Okay. Good. And what's the mob purpose? Are you only implementing solutions like writing the code, or you also define requirements, the refactorings, collaborate with business people, and so on?
Yeah, there's us developers. So we're a team of 4, and we're a Scrum team. So what we are having is Scrum sprints of 2 weeks that we have. And well, I think for the mobbing, we do planning and designing, of course, as a mob, and well, of course, as the coding, the implementation phase, and also review happens on the side because we're doing the mobbing, and then we also test a little bit our software. Of course, we have this. What we try to strive for is this test-driven development and behavior-driven development. So we want to write these executable specifications first, and then we, as a mob, and then we go implement and see that our tests turn green, basically. And yeah, we also have a business people here. They are not part of our mobs actually. So we have more like regular meetings with our stakeholders. So we have a couple. We have actually right now what we are doing is software for another internal team for our client. So this client is not that actively mobbing with us. They're more like we have these synchronization meetings with them, and we kind of demo that, okay, this is the thing we have done this week or this sprint, and so on.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, and well, also the kind of way that we mob is that we have a what you would call this probably this mob democracy, is that the mob decides all the paths we take forward. Do we want to go this way, or do we want to go the other way? So so we as a mob, we propose the next steps and then informally vote for or against them. So we have this kind of we want to go into one route. We want to see how it turns out. Maybe that was a bad decision. We can be very agile, and we can then like roll back our decision. Let's take another route and try that again. Yeah.
And how does the business accept that or react to that?
I think the business has been quite fine, and the business understands that, okay, this is after all software development, and every software development project is it's kind of a learning and research project. So you have to kind of go to some direction until you get the data, and kind of you can stand for your data so that you know if it was a good decision to make. And then you can say that, okay, we found out that, for example, the decision we made yesterday wasn't that good one, so let's correct the course at this one. So we should like always, I think we have a good communication with business, that the business understands that we are going different directions, but that's only for finding out what's the kind of the work we want to do. And in mobbing context, I really like this quote from Woody Zuil, the kind of the, let's say, father figure of mob programming, who has said that it's in the doing of the work that we find the work we must do. So that's also something that has stuck with me for several years. Is that it's when we start doing, then and only then do we understand that okay, this is the thing we must do.
Yeah. Great. I totally agree with that. So.
Yes.
And was it introduced to the team, or you just came to the team and it was already there? So what was the process of starting the mob?
Yeah, I think in my team, I think it was me who started talking about this
Okay.
early. So someone might think I was even kind of brainwashing my team, but well, that's not the truth because, well, I'm quite a proactive engineer, software engineer, in that way that when I see a problem in, for example, ways of working, I really want to solve it, because I think by having a like a poorly optimized development process, so something like that has, for example, a lot of the waste as known in lean software development, we have a lot of rework or delays or queues or something like that. It can be a very like damaging to our velocity if you want to measure velocity. And one of our major problems was in our team is that we had this process. We have a very typical kind of process. At first was that we had a lot of work in progress going on, a lot of tasks going on simultaneously, and every developer had their own task. And you know how it goes then, that people were also working in several different repositories, in several branches, and as a result, we had a lot of code review going on. And also the code review was quite slow and quite painful, because it was this asynchronous code review. So you post something and then I made this fix. Maybe next day or day after that, you get some feedback that, okay, how does this look like? Then you go back and you have to fix these things. And yeah, it's kind of like not good, so to say. So I started suggesting my team that, hey, maybe we should try out this thing called mob programming. And it's kind of have this, it kind of had this cousin called trunk-based development or continuous integration, that, hey, let's cut back on the amount of branches that we make. So we made this develop branch, and we started sharing it, and we started pushing commits to the develop branch, and kind of always making sure in continuous integration style that our pipeline is green, and if the pipeline is red at any point in the day, we stop and we try to fix it. And I think that has been very well. And
And did you meet any resistance? How did you sell the idea?
I think there's not really resistance, so to speak. I think it was more like some skepticism, a bit like maybe even a hint of fear there. It's like not all of the people had any kind of strong experience with mobbing or trunk-based development or anything like that. But instead of resistance, I think they were more like curious about, okay, we could try this out. They could, in a sense, they could see what I was talking about, even if they didn't mainly fully experience all the pain points that I brought on. But maybe they were able to see kind of that, okay, let's try this and let's see how it goes. And we also communicated that to the business that, okay, our team is going to do more programming now. So, and the team was kind of like, well, okay, you do you. It's also kind of funny that usually you will think that business would say that absolutely not, you cannot do this, that's a waste of time. But the business was that, okay, I mean, we are interested in, let me know how it goes. So that was kind of a big surprise for me as well.
Okay, good. And did you start with some like coding katas to try it, or you jumped straight to implementing features? And
Yeah, that's a good question. I think we should have done some coding katas at the moment, because not everyone was very skilled at mob programming at first. So we did jump straight to the features, and I think at some points, especially we had some of the people. Well, some people were a little bit experienced in TDD and BDD, so they could have understand this kind of a red-green refactor phase, and they were kind of, okay, we'll do this one. You're navigating, I'm driving, so let's start from the test. Let's make it pass, and then let's do some refactoring there. But I think there were also other people in the team who were not that comfortable with that kind of, and they might feel a bit like that. We're kind of dragging behind here. That I don't know all that stuff. So it would probably been better if you would started from something very basic instead of jumping like straight to the deep end. You know?
Yeah. So you kind of had to learn both mob program and to do TDD and
Yes, a bit.
so
Yeah. It's like more programming and TDD and BDD and continuous integration, drug-based development, all this. That must be like a lot to chew. But this was probably, because I had a lot of experience in these. So I kind of brought this that maybe it's a bit of bias because I knew that, I had experience in these, and I thought maybe other people can just learn this fast, but maybe not. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And can you tell when did the benefit come, and what benefit did you find in mob programming?
So I think the benefit was, let's say, it took about a month from us from the first mobbing sessions that we became quite proficient with mobbing. And of course, our development hasn't actually stopped there, but we have become better all the time. And I think when it comes to like how long does it take to get good at mobbing, is like that it relates to this general cycle of productives. You know, this we have forming, norming, storming, and performing in kind of a way. So first, when we started, I think we were kind of forming our mobbing setup. Like we were trying to think that what tools do we use? We're remote teams, so okay, let's probably use VS Code Live Share, share our screen in Teams, and do that kind of stuff. Also negotiate that how we do branching, or do we do that continuous integration for now? And then we started like experimenting with all the rules of the game, that how do these things play together? Of course, since we are also quite passionate software engineers, which means that we get some disagreements and kind of storming along the way. But that's only like an inevitable part of these cycles. And then but I think then later on we finally kind of settled in as the performers here. So I think it took a little bit over a month. That's would probably be safe to say. And what did it improve for us? I think the best thing is that has happened with mobbing is that we have faster code reviews because there are very less or no handovers at all. So we don't have to hand over the code at all. And I think the synchronous code review is so much more effective than the asynchronous code review. Like I indicated earlier, is that you can get the feedback like instantly after you have been writing code, you get the feedback to it. And I also really like this one quote from Dragan Stepanovic. And he has been saying this one thing, that the optimal size of pull request is one line of code review as soon as it's reviewed as soon as it's written. And that's also something that has stuck with me, that it's actually true. The pull request should be this kind of bite size things. Of course, they're not really a pull request, but because who would have the patience to open such a pull request that has one line, and who would merge it immediately, because this can create also kind of a waste in the process. But the code review is definitely something that we've been enjoying a lot because it happens instantly. And we use pull requests for releases. So for example, when we want to release a new version, we kind of create this pull request. We have a pipeline for that, which will then deploy our application, or actually build our application into this kind of a preview version of it. And then I think a lot of the things actually relate to these code reviews in a way that we also have this higher code quality, because the feedback is so instant, of course, and we're using trunk-based development. And we are working on very small patches. And whenever we have completed some piece of the code, we're also really eager to refactor it as well, because we're together there. And we think that, okay, we have completed something, our tests are passing now, but our code can be, for example, a very horrible state, but then we just start refactoring there.
Yeah.
And it's really enjoyable that way. And then there's the knowledge sharing. I think it's very effective because we don't have to write so much or do any kind of asynchronous knowledge sharing, which means that we can just discuss with our team what are the best practices and how we should do that. Maybe we want to check on some libraries, and everything just happens in the mob. It's very natural way of knowledge sharing. It's like we're sitting in this circle and thinking about the problems that we have. And in that way, we also have this continuous learning, and we get better at understanding the kind of the domain we work with. So there's, if I would sum this up, probably it will be like that we have a lot of leaner process, and our learning is also a lot more efficient.
Okay, and does the business feel that you're more productive in this manner, or you don't have any insight on this?
Yeah, this one thing that we've been a little bit missing is that because we don't have a really good metrics at this point, so or like a data from this, so we're not actively measuring, for example, some cycle times or lead times that much. So it's kind of hard to say that. Well, we of course feel that we are faster when we are mobbing, but it can also be like that. It might be that some of our tasks or stories are a bit rough because we don't necessarily do that detailed planning in a way. And of course, just as I pointed earlier, is that when you actually start working, you then understand the whole big picture of the story you're working on. So it might be that if you want to follow our progress, like from this issue tracker point of view, that okay, stories are completing, tasks are being like crossed out from the story list and so on. So that might seem like a slow thing, but of course we're still, I think we are quite effective because we are also doing a lot of learning there, and we are constantly learning to be better as software engineers. And that way we also hopefully like develop ourselves, but also develop the product. And we also learn that, for example, are there some kind of features that we shouldn't be doing in the first place? Maybe there's something like maybe the business had like wished for something that doesn't really make sense, or it could be done some other way that we originally planned. And then it might be just that we decide in the mob that okay, this might not be what we want to do, so we drop it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so you, thanks to the mobbing sessions, you managed to eliminate waste in terms of
Yes.
unnecessary features.
Yeah. So eliminating waste and like these kind of redundant features. We have some features in our backlog which are kind of like nice to have. So they are kind of like lesser priority items, and we start working on those. But quite soon we can actually see from our kind of way of working and how we approach this problem together as a mob is that this might not make sense to do, and then we either drop it fully, or if it was like a relatively low priority for that feature, then we can just drop it. We don't need to say to the business that hey, we didn't do that. We don't have to like really convince the business that it was okay to drop it. But if it was some higher priority, then we really need to discuss that. Okay, maybe we need to do this a little bit the different way. Maybe we need a little bit different architecture here that we can do. And I think mobbing is again, we have this very like a good discussion going on all the time in the mob, so we can easily have this kind of discussions.
Okay, and are there any things that became worse because of mobbing?
Yeah, not sure if it make worse. I think on the team level, most of the things are bit better. I think on the individual level, well, we have one developer who would mostly actually prefer working alone because they can sometimes feel that the mobbing is like unproductive and sometimes like tiring. It's like when let's say that we are, for example, we have these tasks that are a bit rough. We don't really know what we should be doing or how we should do it. We might end up like reading some documentation. We might be end up like going to Stack Overflow, maybe see that how is this, how do I do this recursive algorithm or something. And it's like one person is kind of reading the documentation and trying to make sense of it. Maybe the other people are doing a bit of other tasks, so it can feel a bit, it's like unproductive because we're not always like hands on keyboard and typing code all the time. So in addition to also early on, we had this problem that mobbing also makes us tired quite a bit because we were so strong in this focus and flow all the time. So we completely forgot to have breaks. We might be mobbing like 3 hours straight. And then we're like, oh my God, I am so tired. I had to go to sleep.
Okay.
Yeah, it was awful. But quickly, okay, thanks to we are being agile team is that we can also have this retrospective. So we quickly started thinking that this can be quite tiring. So let's try to make sure that we have breaks every 1 hour. So let's have a like every 1 hour 10 minutes or something like that. We can think, and then all of these problems, of course, like vanished because we were not that tired anymore.
Yeah.
Of course, sometimes we can be like still in the focus, so to speak, that for example after 4 o'clock in the afternoon or 5 o'clock in the afternoon we still might be working, but it's clear that at that time of the day we are no longer our like best versions of ourselves. So then we might it's one thing that mobbing has also, I think, improved for us is that it has made our like it has made us better to know ourselves when we are tired, when we are like not the best versions of ourselves. And if that happens, then we must stop working.
Okay.
So yeah. And I think but back to the topic of what made things worse. I think usually, well, we don't have a lot of those, but I think if the team, for example, has some personal issues between the team members, then the mobbing can feel a bit awkward. So it can be. So those personal issues kind of need to be forced, or like mobbing makes us forced to confront these, and we need to confront each other as people and really work out those issues before we start mobbing. So of course we had some disagreements with our team, so but there are probably not any like any kind of long living personal issues. So it has been good, and we've been lucky with that we actually are a team who can enjoy the presence of others. But of course it would be the otherwise, then I don't know if we would be mobbing at all. It's probably, but we wouldn't be a very good team at all then.
Yeah. Okay. And you talked about doing mock retrospectives. Can you elaborate more on that? How do you do them, when, how, and so on?
So we have this Scrum retrospective on 2-week sprint. So it means that we have this formal sprint retrospective like bi-weekly, so every 2 weeks. And it's kind of a very nice way to have this more formal event where we can really dig into some issues that we had, or some like a very deeper and systemic issues. And well, of course it's a meeting, so it's kind of a mob in a way, you may think. But I think after mobbing, we have also tried to keep some of these kind of more informal mobbing. So after each session, for example, in the afternoon, we might think a little bit that how did this day go for us? What was good in this day? And what was bad in this day? And I think right now we are trying to also formalize that a little bit. So I think what the last retrospective, we kind of wanted to have this kind of a informal feedback session. So after every week we should have this kind of a smileys event, which means that, hey, how was your week? You can even talk about your like a personal life if you want. It's kind of like, let's load off everything at the end of the week, so on Friday, for example, and then let's go in peace to the weekend and really enjoy that. And it's kind of let's have this a bit of semi-formal kind of event at the end of the week. Yeah.
Oh, that sounds quite fun and interesting.
Mhm.
It's the first time I hear about such
Yeah.
an event. That's cool. I might suggest it to the team. I mean.
Yeah. It's kind
Uh-huh.
of yeah. Speaking of those kind of events, I will also point out that well, we are a remote team, but we're also meeting each other every month in person. So we are gathering together. We have these live mobbing days at the office. So we go there, we mob in the office, then we have some after work. Last time we
Yeah.
actually went to play some board games. In the evening, and also some dinner. So we kind of have these team event days as well.
Okay. And how frequently do you mob, and how long are the mobbing sessions, and so on?
I would say that it varies, of course, day by day. But what I would say that it's typically, let's say, 2 to 3 hours at most in the morning, I think. Then we have a lunch break, let's say 1 hour of that. Then it's followed by, let's say, 4 to 5 hours in the afternoon. And all sessions, like I said, contain breaks, obviously, because we're not machines.
Yeah.
So what we try to do is to limit our daily work, of course, to 8 hours. Just to keep us in shape. We don't believe in any kind of that like 60 or 80 hours work weeks or anything like that. We want to really work for 40 hours at maximum per week, and
Yeah.
so that's more than enough. Okay, and yeah, but sometimes of course the flow grabs us a little bit tight and we might work later. But of course we do the best work as we can while limiting ourselves to in some certain time frames.
Okay, that's great. And are you in the classic driver navigators configuration, or you have other roles?
Yeah, yes, we follow this driver navigator pattern. We don't really, at first we experiment with these rotations, but sometimes we found out that, for example, after 10 minutes, the rotation kind of break our focus a little bit. And it was quite it was quite hard to get back into the focus again because you had a little bit of this context switching, that, okay, we're changing drivers. And nowadays we try to do a little bit like this, if you know this TDD ping pong, in a way that I, for example, can write a failing test, then another one in the mob can make it pass, and then the next one, for example, can refactor the code in a way so that we have this kind of, maybe it's kind of a carousel, it goes round and round. And but also in addition to like driver and navigator, which is just two people, we usually have so we were a team of four. I think I said that anyway, but
Yeah.
so the rest of the two, while we're mobbing, they are more like on the background, so their roles are more like the observers, so to speak. Is that what they can do is they're not actively maybe participating to the coding itself, but they might be researching or something. They might be Googling for something that, okay, how does that library, for example, work, or that particular piece of code, is there any way to do that better?
Okay.
And they can also observe like the big picture in a way that they can take a little bird's eye view to the whole code base or to the module that we are actually developing. They can think that, okay, maybe we have this one class, it's going to grow quite big, so they can early on spot things like, for example, that maybe we should kind of start splitting this up, and maybe they can see that some opportunities that, hey, maybe we should write a new test for that particular feature if you have missed something or something like that.
Okay. Good. And how do you find mobbing compared to pairing? Do you have any insights in this?
Yeah. Personally, I can't speak for the whole team, of course, but personally, I like mobbing a lot more than pairing, actually, because it's like the Woody Zuil pointed out, is that all the brilliant minds are there in the same space, working on the same task and the same computer. So we have this, what you might call like a hive mind, in a way that we are really, really doing the work together. And I really like it, because I think when we are pairing, is that it's still good. It's still better than working alone, of course, this pairing. But I think in the pairing, you can still hit this wall kind of things that maybe we're only two people and neither of us really know how to go forward. We need that extra help from, let's say, a third or fourth person. We're going to need to ask something. So we have often seen that we hit this kind of virtual walls, so to speak. And
Okay.
if I'm going to need some information, it's very likely that someone in the mob can answer that because everyone is around me. And I think we rarely get stuck with the problem nowadays unless it's something that was caused by, for example, third-party code we haven't written, some kind of a database abstraction layer or library or something. We have been a bit struggling with some libraries that we had in the past. And yeah, I think mobbing, it's kind of all the brilliant minds there. So for me, it's better. But of course, I understand that I work also with people who like pairing more than mobbing. And what they usually like say to me is that they like pairing more than mobbing is because mobbing can feel a bit chaotic. And we also see the situations that we are not really sticking to the roles. So what actually happens is that there's a driver and there can be three navigators, and navigators are like coming from left and right and from beyond you, and it's like it's complete chaos there. And of course, then at those points, I think the answer is just to kind of be a retrospective again and really think that, okay, can we now really agree on these roles? Only one navigator, only one driver. The rest are like observers, or they might have some other roles or something like that. And I would say that the answer is not to go pairing at that point, but to get better at mobbing. But that's of course my kind of personal opinion.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Good. And how experienced are the participating individuals in the mob?
We have one junior developer, and I think the rest of us are kind of mid-level to seniorish people with some years, 10 years experience maybe. And in our own way, I think we are all a bit like specialists. And so, for example, I'm a full stack engineer, but I think if you would ask me that where my specialty is that I have a strong experience from backend systems and databases, but we also have a developer who's also a very experienced one with frontends and UI and React and this kind of things, and also UI design. He's good with that. And then we have a one-person team who is also like a very experienced with the domain we are working on, so they can bring this more like data science kind of data thinking also into our mob. Yeah. So yeah, we're like quite varied. One junior and more seniors there. Yeah.
And how does the junior first how does the junior fit? And second, do you think it helps him to progress better in his career?
Well, I think the junior, most likely that we had some informal chats or discussions with our junior is that he has been enjoying quite a lot, and it's like nice to see that he's also developing some skills there, and he's also getting like a better with our domain, and he can also follow up a little bit. Of course, he's not that good, for example, in navigating, or when he has some very tricky problems, it's kind of like might not be that natural for him because he has less experience than us to actually like navigate there. So most of the time we also let him drive a little bit more, so he can just focus on typing and doing as much as learning as possible. So I think that's best for him. But of course, when it's kind of when he learns more and more, then of course there can be more responsibilities for actually taking on the navigation role and so on.
Okay. And do you think mobbing actually helps him learn faster than juniors in non-mob environments?
I would hope so. So
Okay.
yeah, I think when we think about the typical team setting is that it's very likely that there's for example people, for example, if we would be working in a very typical team setting, is that I would be probably working on all the backend tasks. We would have a front-end developer. They would be doing all the front-end tasks. And then there's maybe junior who's trying to juggle a bit, like doing some easy tasks on there.
Mm-hmm.
But when we are mobbing, there's kind of this one thing I really like with mobbing is that we don't have these personal tasks, because
Yeah.
only the team has tasks. So that means that the junior developer is also part of all the tasks that we are working. And I see it's a kind of a serious problem also in teams that do not do mobbing, especially when they don't really like pick suitable tasks for people, or for example, they might say that, okay, you're a junior, so you go fix that UI, or you do some of those simple tasks. Let's say you do a little bug fixing, all that kind of stuff that doesn't necessarily develop you further. But when we are mobbing, the junior is right here with us, like really seeing how even we seniors struggle with something. And I think that's if that's not developing, then I don't know what is.
Yeah. Okay. And what's your mob programming setup?
Yeah, well, mostly we are doing it remotely. So we have this Visual Studio Code live share that we use to share the development environment. So we have the multi-cursor set up there. We're writing code. We're running some shell comments, so we can share the terminal there and also write some comments. It also has a quite nice way to share these debugging sessions. So we can place breakpoints there. Someone can run our application or tests, and then we hit on those breakpoints, and then we can like inspect those together. And for audio communication, we tried actually, VS Code has this audio plugin as well, but we tried it once and it had this delay like 30 seconds. So we kind of discarded it very quickly. But so we have been using Microsoft Teams, and sometimes we have been also using a Slack huddle. So the Slack organization in our company, and we've been using that. And then of course we need to also like share the screen because we're working on desktop applications. So we need to share basically the application usually. And yeah, and also one thing that I've been personally following with great interest is this JetBrains Fleet Editor, which means how they say it in their marketing page, which I haven't yet used that product, so I cannot say, but what they promise is to have this kind of a shared remote development environments on the cloud. It's like when we are doing VS Code live share, of course, some of us is sharing, of course, their like local instance. But what if we could actually have that development environment on the cloud in some kind of a server or like a virtual machine that we can connect to and code in there? So it's kind of a really interesting idea that we have there. But yeah, that's for the remote, I guess. And so our local setup is that when we're at the office, once a month or more often even, is that we share one or two desks usually. Maybe we have one desk where everyone is kind of gathered there. And usually someone has the coding laptop. There's the one display, multiple keyboards. So we use this Bluetooth keyboards. We can quite easily switch that. Okay, you are your keyboard is the in command right now, so to speak. And usually also someone else has their own laptops open. They might be doing some kind of Googling for that. And we of course do this kind of old-fashioned rotation that we give our seat to the next driver and so on. So we kind of had this funny looking carousel going on after a while. So it's also probably for I don't know how it looks for people who steps into the room, but it might look quite funny sometimes because we're working on the same computer, and they might think that okay, those people are clearly wasting time working on one task with 5 people or something like that. But I think more it looks like that we're actually having this very effective brainstorming session there going on.
Okay. And do you use any special hardware, be it for remote or for in-person mob programming?
I don't know. Maybe usually I think webcams that we have, if we have those open, I think those are very standard. Of course, then we have some external microphones and of course some headsets and special. So not very special hardware. I think we have a pretty standard setups there and just good internet connections and so on. So we can do.
Okay, good. So these were all the questions that I had, and
Okay.
now feel free to share your personal opinion on the matter or anything else you want to say. Um,
Yeah, I think as a conclusion is that what I've liked with us doing the mobbing is that we have this very tight collaboration model, and we are really like feeling to be a team. So in earlier projects I've been working, and that we haven't done mobbing in every project that I've been. It has been feeling a little bit more like I haven't been we haven't been really that much of a team in a way. So there's like very concrete team building capabilities that when you do mobbing, you're really like getting to know other people as well. And you kind of you're not always, of course, talking about like how's the work and anything like that. You might like ask that what did you eat for lunch? How is the cat doing? How is the dog doing? Or something like that. Maybe you hear from something like side noises, and maybe you get that, oh, do you live with someone there, or kind of like because we're working remotely, so that means that we have this kind of a barrier between us, but mob programming kind of makes it thinner so that we get to know each other better. Yeah. And also I think I very much also like this collective code ownership. So we kind of have this very loose collaboration model in a way that, or let's say tight collaboration model. So no one of us is actually owning these tasks. So we work everything or most of the stuff together, and we have this responsibility. So, for example, at some point we had this kind of a failures we have made. For example, at one point we were actually doing a bit of a very advanced or like a very difficult feature we're building, and we were building it through tests. But of course our tests were not able to, we had this lab environment where we were supposed to connect our laptops to get the real data from our devices. So we had to of course mock and fake that data in our tests, and doing so, it of course exposes us to that we are not connected to reality in a way. Even though our test passed, then we get to the actual, let's say, integration testing environment where we got the real data, and it turned out that none of this was working correctly. We were doing all things wrong, basically, or most things wrong. And then that also led me to think that, hey, if I would have been working on this task alone, let's say for a week, thinking that this works, only to see, for example, next day that nothing works, then I would have probably blamed myself kind of way that, why didn't I test earlier, or why didn't I think of that? But now there were actually three of us who were doing kind of the living in the same illusion that it's kind of like this must work, and then we together found out that it doesn't work. But what ensued was not that we didn't start pointing fingers at each other or blaming ourselves or each other. Of course, we kind of embraced this as a learning event. That okay, we learned. We need to be better next time. We need to be more careful. And I think this is like this kind of collaboration and the ownership of both the successes and the failures and everything. I think that's the true power in mob programming, is that you can really share all the ups and downs, and it's kind of partly in relation to all these team building capabilities that we have with mob programming. Yeah. And also maybe I would also add that when at first, when we were not more programming, I think we were kind of this group of the specialists. So backend, front end, data science, UI design, and all this kind of. We had more specialties, but I think after we had done more programming for several months, then I think what has happened in our team is that we are more full stack people. I think even our front end developer is more like comfortable working with backend systems. And I think, well, I was a bit scared a little bit to work with our front end system because it had some like intricacies that it used some kind of well, of course, it was my actually first time that I really started doing serious development with Electron, for example. And it had something that I wasn't very comfortable working with that. But after we started mobbing, then I started to learn more and more about the stack that we have also on the front end. and that really started feeling like more comfortable to go into the front end. So now I'm really like also comfortable moving between front end and back end, and it's like real full stack work.
Okay.
Yes.
Great. So thank you a lot, Niko. It was
thank you.
A really interesting conversation. I'm going to share it.
Yes, thank you.
And I'll ping you as soon as I have the article ready, so well, you can be aware of it.
Yes, I'm looking forward to that. Thank you. This was a nice chat.
Great. Have a great evening.
Yeah, have a nice.
Bye.
Yeah, bye-bye.